you cool cats and kittens. Welcome back to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Bill, it's good to talk to you today.
Good to be back. How you doing?
Good. Now, yesterday, we went to record this. It's for the Robert Tomes interview. And let me just talk to you a little bit about this, Bill, because we didn't talk about this yesterday when we attempted to record this. But let me tell you about Robert Tomes, Bill. He's kind of like a pirate. I mean, there is a curse, the curse of Robert Tomes.
Go on.
I was waiting for you to say, go on. That's like your signature right there. But no, what it is I have conducted hundreds of interviews, okay? We have over 100,000 unique downloads to our podcast, which is a really cool thing that we surpassed. Yeah, well, it's really neat. I think we're at 110,000 right now. Never have I ever had any problems with guests that I could not overcome fairly easily. Okay. Problems being IT problems. So no, I'm telling you, this is very weird. Okay, so the first time with Robert Tomes, now he's an author. He authored a book called Muskie on the Fly. I mean, he's a very well-known author, and we talk a lot about his books and his articles today on the podcast. But the first time I interview him, I'm kind of nervous. I'm always nervous when I have someone I don't know that's coming on. It's just the way that I am. I can't. I'm meeting someone new. It's just like anybody else. If you're a human being, you get nervous. When someone has some clout too, you even get a little more nervous because you're like, I'm really going to look like an idiot. I'm going to screw this thing up. So the first time I was going to interview Robert, I had miscalculated. He's in Chicago, so he's on Central Time. I'm on Eastern Time. So my email said Central Time, but I meant Eastern Time. So I missed it, and I was really embarrassed. Okay. And that doesn't happen, all right? Because when people offer me their time, I want to make sure that I'm on time. You know that, Bill. Bill, you know that I'm on time. I'm just that kind of guy.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what happened the first time. Second time I recorded him, the whole computer went screwy, and I lost the entire interview.
Oh.
Okay. Third time I go to interview the guy. Now, mind you, this was all for one interview. Okay, so he was very gracious and let me come back for the third time and actually do an interview again, and it came out okay, but I was like, I was still having tech problems that time. I swear to God, I'm not lying. I was still having these tech issues, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, right? Because I really want to, like I said, when people are on my show, or our show, I want to make sure that I'm professional. I want to make sure I respect their time. I want to respect who they are, and I never want to make a bad first impression. It's that whole thing. Well, so we get the interview done, and it goes out, and it goes great, like I knew it would. And me and Robert kept in touch, and we've kept in touch. We talk, and, we stay in touch texting and that kind of thing. He's kind of local, Chicago, just a couple hours south of us.
Yeah.
So when I go to interview Robert Tomes a couple days ago, beginning of the week, I'm having technical difficulties. Okay, now mind you, I've had a lot of guests on the show, and I don't have problems. I very, very, very rarely have problems because I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. I'm paranoid about that. Okay? All right, so I have technical problems. I start the interview 15 minutes later than what I told him. Don't like that, Bill. I don't like that at all. Fast forward to when you and I decided, hey, we're gonna record the intro for the Robert Tomes interview. I swear the computer was haunted. Nothing would record. We had to postpone it to today. We had to give it another day. So I'm convinced of the curse of Robert Tomes. There's like the curse of the Black Pearl, all this other stuff. Like Robert Tomes, he's such a great guy, but there's something about him that, and we as fly anglers are pretty superstitious people as it is, But just not cool, man. It's consistent with this one guest. It's not like this is split up over 3 or 4 guests. Oh, Jeff has a reputation of not being on time. No, it's not like that at all. Robert Tomes, and I go into I talk to him a little bit about this. I'm like, Robert, what is it about you? Like, I can interview anybody else. I'm on time. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. But for some reason, every time I interact with you, something happens. I don't know. You ever have anything like that before, Bill? Are you a superstitious guy at all, or not really?
I am not. No.
I don't know what to say to you, Bill.
Hopefully, I never will be. Knock on wood.
A couple things I wanted to talk about. New York Times has announced that Tiger King has another episode coming out. You're gonna watch. Did you finish the whole series, Bill?
I did finish the whole series.
So
I did.
You saw the funeral scene?
Yeah, that was awkward.
I literally did not know what to say when he was
in front of his family and his mom. Yeah,
put those big old in your face.
Yep.
And I'm like, I sometimes I wonder if the whole thing's staged. I wonder if the whole thing, but it's not because Carol Baskins, or he's in jail, and Carol Baskins is a real deal. Like we mentioned last week, even the juice is a murderer.
I did see in the news too that they were reopening the case against her.
I saw that, so it can't be staged.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I heard there was supposed to be a new episode this coming Monday night on Fox.
On Fox?
Yeah, TZM was going to be hosting something.
Did you notice that when that girl got her arm eaten off by the tiger, that he put on a bomber jacket? It was like an EMT bomber jacket.
Yeah, I did.
Like, why would you? Did we talk about that last week or not?
No.
I was like, why would you? Oh, okay. There's an emergency. I better put on my EMT bomber jacket and smoke a cig. I've got
just the coat for this.
Yeah, I got just a jacket for this. And then he goes into...
It's all about accessories.
Then he goes back. Then he goes back into the gift shop. He's like, look, y'all, you're probably going to hear it on the news. So you might just want to grab yourself something from the gift shop. And he's like, I'm never going to financially recover for this. So I get this meme. I forgot what it's from, but I'll post it up. But it's him in the bomber jacket smoking a cig. And it says, me thinking fly tying is less expensive than buying. And then, I'll never financially recover from this. I was like, oh my gosh. But how are things going for you and Jennifer, you and your wife there, Bill? I mean, you guys doing okay?
Yeah.
And
Yep. Doing fine. Still holding up in the house. Everything's going great.
Yeah, that's good, man. You guys planting a garden or anything, or just like
we're talking about it, trying to clean up the lawn. Yeah, yep, and talking about doing a garden this year. We'll see. We've got like a little grow house over here with some, but you can't see on camera, but just different seeds we're trying to start that aren't wanting to cooperate with us. So yeah, we're trying.
They're not wanting to cooperate with you?
Yeah. We've got maybe the first 6 took, the rest of them didn't. So we got to see what's wrong. What's wrong there? I'm not a green thumb.
You're not a green thumb. Well, just so our audience knows, he does have a grow house, but it's not like.
It is a grow house.
We have a legalization.
We're growing marijuana. No, I'm kidding. No. We're not growing.
And we are selling it here on the Remote No Pressure podcast. If you go to our website at remotenopressure.com. No, totally not. We are not selling drugs. He's growing. You don't even drink alcohol. So no. I know it's not anything illegal, but that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Although we can grow here in Michigan legally. I think up to 12 plants
per person
at home. And that's way more than you can ever. I don't know if that's more you could use or not. I've never done it before, so
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to talk to you about too, Bill. I mean, are you a John Prine fan or not really?
No, but I thought about you when I heard he passed away.
Yeah, you know my affection for John Prine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if anyone knows what John Prine looks like, but what I'm doing right now, if you go to our YouTube page, I'm going to remove my hat, Bill, because I do have the John Prine haircut. And if people know what John Prine's hair looks like, you can go onto our YouTube page, click below, people, subscribe. We need 1,000 subscribers. We're at almost 100 now, so go down there and subscribe. So what I'm going to take off my hat, and then I'm going to show people my new haircut. It's the John Prine cut. Okay, this is actually not a haircut. This is actually just my hair that's really grown out, and it's funny because I have the exact same hair loss in the same area where John Prine did. Here we go. You can't see me, can you, Bill?
I can't see you. We're not FaceTiming.
Hold on.
But I'll pretend. I'll pretend like I'm looking at you. Yeah, spitting image.
I made a little goofy face too. Now here's the deal. I've been hiding behind this microphone. I've been hiding under hats too. Okay, but if you want to see me look like an idiot and you want to see the hair, my John Prine haircut, go to our YouTube page and check it out. I'm willing to do whatever it takes for the YouTube channel. I'm willing
to be a star.
I gotta be vulnerable, and that's one of the things that John Prine talked a lot about. And thank you, Aaron Reed, for sending me the article on songwriting. How he was a very vulnerable person, and I think that's what makes people real. You know, who they really are. However, I don't like showing my challenged head. By the way, follicular can be used in that way. Dr. Brad Boone reached out to me and clarified that I can actually use that word. However, I'm going to refrain.
That's probably wise. Yeah.
I'm not going to use that term. So, also, I was going to say, Phil Wingo reached out to me from Sandhill Coffee, and if you're watching the YouTube channel, you can see my sweet Sandhill Coffee mug. It's a nice mug. It's a solid camp mug. I think you can buy it on their site. But he's offering our listeners 20% off when you type in remote20 at checkout.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very nice of him. He's sending up some coffee to us. I like his coffee. He's got a new blend he's trying out, so we'll be able to report that. I'll bring some over to you. I also got that other swag for you, that fly fishing with Sam. I got to get that over to you this week, bro. I mean, I'm a very busy person right now.
Oh, I know.
There's no excuse. I'm just being lazy. But I'll get you some coffee too when that gets sent out. But Phil Wingo's offering our listeners a discount remote20 at checkout. Now, let me just talk to you a little bit about Phil Wingo. He is our friend, right? I mean, he's been a sponsor before on our podcast, but really more than anything, he's our friend. And a lot of these guys are struggling. A lot of these mom pop shops, we talk about this too, the guides and things like that. And Phil, I don't think he's struggling like crazy because he sells coffee and it's kind of like alcohol. I'm going to drink it either way. But however, he makes a lot of his revenue, especially in this quarter, from a lot of the farm markets around Chicago, around Illinois, and they're all been shut down because of this coronavirus, because of the Rona. And so he is trying to recover from that. So if you go to his website, which we have links there in the show notes, and type in remote20 at checkout, you'll get a 20% discount off your order.
Very cool.
It's very nice of him.
Yeah.
Bill, have you been drinking a lot of coffee?
I have. I'm drinking it right now.
Well, it's pretty early in the morning for us. When's the peak time for you? When is your brain really working well, would you say?
Probably about 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay, because that gives the coffee time to get in your system.
That's about 4 cups in.
4 cups in. 4 cups in. 4 cups in. Holy cow. That's a lot of coffee, man.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is. I've been drinking way too much beer and stuff. You know, like I'm not drinking it. And I don't have any in the house right now because I'm drinking. You know, it's too much, man. I'm really mentally I'm in a bad spot.
Well, if you want to buy some, I got my old stock still from Founders. So just let me know what you're looking for.
You got old stock from Founders? How old is that?
2016 and beyond. That's when I quit.
Is it? Does it go bad? It goes bad, doesn't it? Like a freshness.
I'm gonna say no because I want to sell it.
Oh, what kind is it?
I've got a full case of KBS. If you're looking for that.
Okay. First, yeah. So
well, we're getting off topic here.
Well, first of all, you know, you have a grow room. But you're not selling anything illegal. And
now I'm selling black market beer.
Now you're selling black market booze. Only on the Remote No Pressure podcast. If you go to our website at blackmarketbooze.com, you too can know. You can sell it on the Silk Road or that whatever that off website is, you know.
What website is that?
There was a libertarian website where you could sell absolutely anything. I think it got shut down. I think it got shut down pretty quick. You can't sell anything. It's called Silk Road, something like that. We're really off topic, but
yeah.
Bill, you ever been to Florida?
Nope. Just airport hubs.
You never been to Florida, Bill?
No. Nope.
Well, as most people know, I love Oklahoma. I've mentioned that several times on the podcast. And if you like Oklahoma, then you're probably going to like Florida. It's the same. I mean, you watch Tiger King, you know Florida and Oklahoma. That's where Carol Baskins lives, is there in Florida. But not all people in Florida are created equally. Not all people in Oklahoma are Tiger King created equally, you know. But Florida's a great place. I didn't know you hadn't been there. No vacations, nothing like that, huh?
Nope.
Wow.
No vacations.
People like going down there.
I've heard.
From here, yeah. I've never been to Have you been to California?
No, never been west of like Tulsa.
I've like been to Washington. I've been to Idaho, but I didn't go over to the Pacific Ocean. You know, I'd like to go to California. I think that'd be a great place. But Florida, if you're going to get hauled up during the coronavirus, I think Florida would be a nice place to go.
Especially this time of year.
This time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great. Well, that's what happened with Robert Tomes. He went down there to fish for tarpon, and now he is quarantined down in Florida. Yeah, he is, quote unquote, trapped, living it up there. But you know, he does have elderly parents up here, and you know, different. So it's, you know, he's wanting to get back, but. But he's here today. He's talking to us about some of his new articles, some of his new work in the Fly Fishing Journal. We'll have links up to those journals. We can't share the actual articles because, you know, he wrote them for the magazines. So he's got to, you know, those are copyrighted. But we'll give you links to where you can pick those up, and also links for his book. But I've never caught a tarpon before. I'm assuming you haven't either, have you, Bill?
Nope, I have not. I've not been fishing in saltwater.
Okay. We got to change that, Bill. We got to change that.
I know.
Well, here's the deal. We talk a little bit about the tarpon. The tarpon come in. It's a seasonal thing. And a lot of these guides now they can't work right now. And it's not like a restaurant, like when you turn it on, twice as many people come in and eat there. I mean, once this season's over, it's over. You know, once the fish are gone, they're gone. So a lot of these guys are actually hurt by this whole COVID lockdown. And we talk a little bit about that too. So it's really sad to see our industry really getting hit and pounded like this. Thoughts, Bill?
It is. You're right.
You haven't said much today, Bill. I think it's because of the curse of Robert Tomes.
I think so. No, and it's early.
It is early,
Yeah.
but thanks for hanging out with me, Bill. Thank you guys for checking us out here on the Remote No Pressure podcast. Let's get to the interview. Let's light the fire. All right. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, I'm very excited to have Mr. Robert Tomes back on the horn with us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Robert.
Great to be back here, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, are you quarantined down in Florida then, or?
Yeah, we are. We're snowbirds, so we usually spend, 6 months down here or whatever. Usually we're headed back north about this time, but we're kind of taking it day by day. And of course, the weather is pretty nice, so there's not a lot of incentive to go north. And Chicago's a mess right now, like so many other places. And Florida's not much better, but this is a good place to be for the moment.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, like I was saying, we had some technical difficulties, so I was running a little bit late today. And you could talk to, I've conducted hundreds, 200-300 interviews on this podcast. I'm not even sure at this point. I know we've had over 100,000 downloads now. We're going strong, and no one has ever experienced the kind of technical difficulties that you've had or that I've had when every time I interview you. It's like, okay, this Robert Tomes interview is coming up, and all of your tech equipment's going to go crazy. So like I was saying, we as superstitious people, anglers, I think that maybe you're a bad omen. I don't know, Robert. I don't know what to do with this, because every time
it could be our last interview, which would be par for the course with a pandemic going on. So that's quite possible.
I was just like, what the heck, But thank you so much for for hanging out with us. I wanted to, a couple of things. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of your articles that you sent over. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's in the fly fishing? Speaking of Florida, right? The Fly Fish Journal down in the Everglades. Can you talk to us a little bit about what came, how did that came about in that article, and go into a little bit of detail about that?
Sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I had a couple of stories come out in the last quarter or so. One was in the Fly Fish Journal, which is just a beautiful magazine, just super high quality. A lot of fly fishers are aware of it. It's in most of your fly shops that are left, and it's got a website, so it's a subscription based magazine, and one of the few that are left and viable. And we talked for a long time about what's going on in Florida, because I do spend a lot of time down here with the water quality, and the concept was basically to get some insight from someone who spends time here on what the impact is on the Everglades fishery specifically, but also overall water quality in the state of Florida, which of course impacts it, because the Everglades are basically, the filter, the kidney that drains a lot of the southeast down into the Gulf, and into Florida Bay. And prior to the pandemic, it was a pretty hot topic. It hopefully will remain an important issue going forward, once we get through what everyone's dealing with now. But it's both an environmental disaster and a political issue. And I wanted to examine, the roots of that, and also what's being done to stave it off. So the article's both historical and also current information with anecdotes about what's really going on here at the moment. And the good news is, this season, the Everglades are doing great right now. This season was fabulous in the Glades in terms of fishing. And the water quality issues don't really show themselves until usually the summer months. And we're talking in that case about one that's very well known, which is red tide, which is not necessarily a man-made problem. It's been going on for a long time, but it's exacerbated by degraded water quality, and also blue-green algae, which is caused by excessive phosphorus and nitrogen in the water, in the fresh water draining from the interior of Florida into the estuaries and bays that support the ecosystems, the sea grasses and the fish populations and the crustaceans that live there. And then beyond that, we've got an issue with salinity, particularly in Florida Bay. That is the amount of fresh water dumping into the ocean, which is unnatural, creates a different inshore ecology that changes things, especially when seagrass starts dying off and fish don't use the same or can't survive and reproduce in the same areas. So that's not really a nutshell, but that's what the story's about.
Now, those fish, are they dying, or are they going to other areas that are more habitat friendly for them? So, you're not.
Yeah, good. I understand. Yeah, it's a good question. There have been die-offs. There have been fish die-offs from red tide, which is caused in part by the toxicity of it, and also oxygen levels. And that's included snook and redfish. And there's actually stocking programs that have gone on now. There was a massive red tide issue in 2018 season. That's where it became a real political hot button, because it affected tourism up and down the west coast of Florida, because have you ever experienced a red tide? Do you know what that's about? Have you?
No, I mean I grew up on the
Yeah.
Gulf of Mexico and Texas, but that it's been 20 years since I lived down there, and I don't think the red
Uh,
tide was an issue like it is now.
okay. Well, it does. It creates a a toxin that's it's like an allergen almost, and it causes a scratchy throat. And for some people who have compromised systems, it can cause, you know, more severe respiratory problems. You know, of course, we're really dealing with big respiratory problems now, so this all seems kind of, moot at the moment, but.
Mm-hmm.
That's what red tide does. And so that's why the tourism was down, because people couldn't go and hang out at the beaches. The blue-green algae is actually creates a toxin that can actually, uh, kill small animals, and it certainly kills fish. It's really bad. Um, but to get to your question about what happens with the fish, yeah, they move around, they change locations. It wasn't as bad in the Everglades as it was further up the coast. So let's say from Naples up toward Tampa and that area past Sarasota, it was far worse. But all of this is a result of man's, unrelenting desire to improve the state of Florida for its own use, and that involves channelizing and draining parts of what was the Everglades itself, which really extends from Lake Okeechobee down, to make for agricultural lands. And there's a lot of commercial interests behind why the Everglades doesn't act the same way as it used to. The drainage of the what's called the River of Grass, which is a term coined some time ago, that refers to how it really just flows all the way through the southern part of Florida into the Gulf, into the Florida Bay. That River of Grass is no longer just a free flowing river. It's crisscrossed by highways and dikes and canals today. So the good news is that the state of Florida, prior to this event, they got the message. They started to see that tourism was a very important thing, and that these environmental issues were starting to impact the state itself. And so they started to take pretty serious action to stave off what's been going on. But it's hard to make up for years and years of just unrelenting commercial and business activity to change the way the Everglades acts.
For sure. Now, throughout the article, you I thought it was kind of funny. You talked about draining the swamp. I think that was an interesting choice of words.
Yeah.
that was
Seemed
pretty
apropos.
sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, thanks for referencing that. Yeah. So my point was to try and be as balanced as I could about what's going on here, and it's a very interesting thing because politically, of course, we've got different views on, depending on what party you're aligned with. If you want to draw that stark line on how important is the environment, just the issue of climate change creates, big arguments in certain groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the state of Florida, because they're surrounded by water, I mean, it's 500 miles long and 150 miles wide. You can't not be impacted by water. And it's got, 21, 22 million people in it. And many of them utilize the water. It's got, probably one of the largest boat ownerships in the country. And what's happened is that those environmental issues have fallen right on the desk of people who have control in the state. And that's in particular Governor DeSantis, who's the Republican governor in Florida now. And he's really tried to take initiative now. He realizes that this is a hot button issue for the state overall. and they're trying to do something about it. And even Trump has backed him on that.
Right.
Now, what I make the point that this is obviously for political expediency too. I mean, you want your voters to love you, and taking care of the environment in Florida is a key part of that. So that's a big part of my article is why that's going on. I haven't really ever delved that far into the politics of it in my writings in the past. Usually, I try to stick with why I love to fish and where to go fishing. But this was a fun one to do.
Yeah, and I'm actually, we're FaceTiming, so if you see me not looking at the camera, looking down, I'm actually looking at your article, and some of the notes that I had made, and that was actually what I was going to point out, was that it has become a bipartisan. It's becoming less partisan, I should say. Especially the governor, and with Trump coming in. Trump has done a few things, environmentally that have been okay, but I thought that was kind of interesting that you pointed it out with Drain the Swamp. But I will give you this: it wasn't politically divisive, and that's a really hard thing to do, is to write an article like that and it not be politically divisive. I think you did a good job. A really great job on that, because that is a fine line, right? I mean, it's whether, as a writer, I'm sure you have opinions and you have thoughts and you have feelings, but yet your job is to report these things, and I think you did a good job, Robert. It was actually really tastefully done.
Thank you for saying so, Jeff. And I would, just to add to that, I think one of the great things about fishing in my life, fly fishing in particular, has been that I can put aside and my friends can put aside political differences and just go fishing and appreciate each other's opinions. And I try never to let those things get in the way. And my point in going into this story was to say, this state and these fish need, and the water needs all the help it can get. And the last thing you want to do is tell people, that they don't know what they're talking about and that everything. I mean, that's not a good way to win friends or influence your friends. So that was the goal, and hopefully it's achieving that in some way. Because I do believe that. I mean, that's it's very important. We need everybody on this.
Right, so. Right. You're not going to convince people by pissing them off, or acting like everything. That's not communication.
No.
No. Now let's get over to your muskie article. When is that one coming out?
Well, it's in the spring issue of American Angler, which is another great magazine. One of the, I have this. Talk about bad omens. It seems like I've written for just about every, what I think are high quality print publication in the fly fishing world over 30 years, and it's down to just a handful now. Now, I won't personally accept responsibility for the demise of American print publications, but it is kind of a scary thought. I go back to my days with Fish and Fly and Rod and Reel, and they're all just, everybody's having a hard time, and it's too bad. And I've experienced it firsthand. But American Angler is still there. It's a great publication. They've got a wonderful editor at the helm, Greg Thomas. And anyway, we were looking to, the spring is a good time to start thinking, or it was, about getting out muskie fishing. And it gave me an opportunity to talk about something that I've been, kind of one of my themes since my book came out like 9 years ago, or my first book came out, Muskie on the Fly, which is that we are living in a time, probably the best time in history to catch muskies, period, and certainly on a fly, and that's evidenced by all the people doing it now and successfully. That's not saying it's easy. I remember saying that, but it's a great time to do this, and also because of regulations and because of habitat in many of the prime areas, the fish, the quality of the fish, and we're just talking size here, which usually in muskie world is length. It's there are a lot of trophy fish out there to be caught, and so I wanted to kind of focus on that. And that's the story. It's called 50 plus. I think I remember. Yeah, 50 plus.
Yeah, 50
Uh,
plus.
how to catch, where to go and how to catch a big muskie. And it deserves more than, one article in a magazine. And it's basically a lifetime uh, pursuit. And just catching one muskie, as I always say, one muskie on a fly or any gear is a great cause for celebration. So I'm not trying to say that, if you don't catch a big one, you haven't done it, but it's pretty cool when you start to experience or hook and maybe you're lucky enough to catch a 50-inch muskie on a fly. It's something else. It's an incredible experience. And so I was trying to steer people in that direction.
Well, one of the things that caught my attention was on the Fox River up in Green Bay. The minimum size is 50 inches, 54
Yeah.
inches.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Isn't it? Well, that's part of our modern muskie legacy now. There are a number of fisheries now that have uh, uh, really high lengths, and this, Jeff. I mean, most people catching muskies today, they're not killing them. They're
Right.
not. It's not just a trophy for the wall. When I started doing this, and I'm 60 years old now. When I started doing this and caught my, first legit muskie at like 14 years old, that uh, there was no question you had to kill that fish and mount it and put it on the wall. And the minimum sizes then, I think they'd gone to 32 in Wisconsin and they were 30 before that.
Wow.
So that's how desperate, it was at that point. And then everything started to change over time. So we've lived during a time. You're living during a time when the fishing is getting better, and that's in part because of good regulations. There's in the muskie world, there's all kinds of debate on why it's happening, and there are still people who don't like having muskies around. There's a whole walleye crowd and other game fish crowds that think they ruin the fishing, but it's pretty well known that muskies preferred food or preferred prey is usually more in the coarse fish or panfish lineup than other game fish. But they do, however, they do eat trout in places, and they do eat game fish on occasion. So but they're also getting really big in some places, and it doesn't last forever in those places. But it's pretty amazing what's the size of the fish that are coming out of some of these waters.
Now, are muskie considered invasive species then? Because I know like sometimes pike are, but are muskie considered invasive or not?
That's a great question, and they are not as a rule by let's say most state fish and game departments. However, there are places where they have through natural migration, flooding, or whatever, gotten into waterways. For instance, in Maine, they've gotten into waters where let's just say, they're not supposed to be, and they're not appreciated there. I don't know if they're designated as invasives, but it's not been well accepted in those areas. But there's some pretty good fishing in some areas. These are more river and flowages. And then, interestingly, just last year, somebody dumped some muskies in some of the kind of lake and flowage areas in Alaska.
Oh no.
And they started to take hold. Now I don't know if they're able to survive winter or not. That could be an interesting thing to look at again. I don't know if they made it through the winter, but there was a kind of an all points bulletin that went out because if you think about muskie, now there are pike up there, of course, and
Sure.
a lot of those drainages, like you're well aware of the fantastic pike fishing in Alaska. I used to guide for them there.
Mm-hmm.
But and they get to 50 inches up there, and that's because they're eating trout and salmon and grayling. I mean, they have their fill, among other things, but they have their fill of great forage to chomp on. But that's kind of a scary thought because you don't want muskies overtaking your salmon fishery or your trout fishery.
Yeah, that could be really bad in Alaska for sure.
Yeah. So hopefully they didn't hold on. But yeah, that's a good question. I never thought, they can do some damage. But the thing about them is their densities are never as high as pike. Yeah, that's why they're always so hard to catch. We never see, pike densities can be extreme in some places. That the proverbial hammer handle pike where you catch one every cast. That's not happened with muskie.
Why is that? Do they just not populate as aggressively as pike then?
I don't have an answer for that from a biological standpoint. They're both broad. They're very closely, very close in their biology. They both are broadcast spawners, which is a very inefficient way of spawning. When, in other words, the females drop eggs, the males drop melt. Hopefully, they connect somewhere along the way and survive into an immature fish. But there's a lot of muskie fishing in the U.S. that's enhanced, of course, by state fisheries and stocking of juvenile fish that are not legal size, but they're pretty big versus other stocked fish.
Right. Do you prefer muskie over tarpon or?
Oh, that's not fair. I love any fish that wants to show itself and chomp on my fly. So I love it all, really. I mean, I got pigeonholed when I wrote the book as just a muskie guy, and so I've tried to branch out. I tried to correct that ever since, writing about all kinds of different species. And I'm a diehard trout fisherman, a steelhead fisherman. I love steelhead and Atlantic salmon, and I just I'm blessed to be able to go and do all those different things. But every tarpon season in Florida, I start out by saying, I don't really need to catch any more tarpon, which sounds, like a pretty dicky thing to say. But and then when they start to show up like they did this spring really early, and we start to jump a few and hook a few and, casting to a late 120 pound or 150 pound fish that wants to swim and eat your fly in front of you right off your rod tip. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. So you get that bug and you close your eyes and all you can see are tarpon. But I'm happy. I got out a couple of weeks ago before, the proverbial shit hit the fan here with the virus. And I haven't been out since, but the wind was bad. And I was disappointed. I was like, because the tarpon were everywhere. And I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to, when tarpon lay up, wind is okay, but you need to be able to approach them kind of in a kind of a slower manner. And if you're blowing by them or there's some cloud coming in or whatever, you lose your visibility, you're screwed. So anyway, we just decided we tried, but it was no dice. So we went searching for snook and reds in really shallow water. And I mean, I just had an epic day. It was just, again, it was really about the sight fishing aspect of it, which is what is so important for trout anglers and everything else. To see a fish, make the cast, make the presentation, and fool them into eating. That versus blind casting, of course.
Right.
It's just so fun. I mean, for me, that's whatever the species, if I can, even if it's carp and you sight fish them, it's fantastic, So that's what I ended up doing. So I don't know that there's another tarpon in my season here, but we caught a lot. We jumped and landed a lot of them. It's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like a great time. We call it the Everglades Slam. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a couple versions of that. The slam was typically a redfish, snook, and a tarpon. And again, there's resident tarpon in South Florida in the Everglades and all year round, but and particularly in the backcountry, and the juvenile fish can be anywhere from 5 to 30 pounds, let's say. The fish that we start seeing in February and into March and right now, and it's been an unusually warm spring, those big fish that come in early, the big females, they are true monsters. They're all over 100 pounds, and they're pushing up to 160, 170, 180. They're just beasts. It's incredible when you see one, and when you hook one, it's incredible.
I can imagine like hooking a tow truck or something. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, and this just came to my mind. So, what is it up? What's up with a slam thing? Because like in Texas, it's a speckled trout, a redfish, and a flounder in one day. You know.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
everyone's got their own little slam. Where did the word slam come from? Do you know, Robert? Do you know the?
Well, I don't know is that be the etymology of that of that term, but I would suggest that it has to do with the fact I know a lot of fly fishers are serious baseball fans, and slam is a pretty important word in baseball.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the I don't know how it came about, but certainly it's quite an accomplishment. The key slam, which is the permit tarpon and bonefish, is a very tough one to accomplish. But every time, I've caught a permit in the Keys, I've always tried to slam, and it's happened a few times, but I always try and do it. It's just like almost, a Pavlovian thing that you have to do if you've got a permit, because you want to say you slammed,
Right. Yeah.
I could tell you, if I could tell you briefly, I wrote a story for the Drake last year or the year before about a trip to Cuba I had made the year before that, and I was with a good friend who caught a permit right off the bat. So we tried to slam all day, and it's quite a dedicated effort. Now, fortunately, in Cuba, there's tarpon everywhere, and there's bonefish everywhere, so it seemed like a no-brainer, right?
Right.
But for the life of us, we couldn't get hooked up on a tarpon, even though we were seeing them and getting the fly in front of them. And so we decided to take a sidetrack and catch the bonefish, which we did. And then we really wanted my buddy to get a tarpon, get his tarpon. And we finally, in the dark, we're sitting on a rip that is a tidal rip on the ocean side of an island in Cuba with no lights on a boat. And the rip is so strong that the anchor rope is like vibrating. You can feel it through the boat. And there's tarpon rolling all around us.
Oh my gosh.
And my buddy, he did have one hit like at the 11th hour, but didn't get it. And true story, I'd been watching him do this all day because I wanted him to get into a fish. And as I was helping him off the deck, because he would have like fallen in and disappeared forever, and I'd have to call his wife and say, hey, sorry, and as he got off the deck and handed me the rod, I'm like, shit, I got a fly rod in my hand. I said, you mind if I cast? He goes, okay. And I threw out a cast, and I hooked up just a beast of a tarpon, and literally it ran all the fly line. It ran, I don't know how much backing. It was a big reel. It was an old fashioned tarpon reel. It ran backing forever. And then I started to feel the ping, ping, ping of the fly line or the backing going over the coral reef. And then it just broke off. And that was the end of that day. So
that's
we came close. A boat slam. We came close.
That's sweet. That's it. Yeah, everyone's got their slam. And I was just curious. Now, are you a Cubbies or a White Sox fan?
I don't usually talk about that in public on radio. I am a fair weather sports fan. Okay. So I grew up on the north side, and I certainly have been to more than my share of Cubs games. But I really do have a lot of Sox fans as friends, and so I'm just not going to even go dig into that. But yourself?
Oh, well, first of all, I grew up, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I may have even talked about it to you. But growing up in East Texas, all the Astros games, because they sucked, were blacked out. So we were able to watch the Cubs, and we were able to watch the Braves. Those are like the two, because TBS and WGN, we got on cable, basic cable.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I grew up a huge Cubs fan, actually. Watching, the Hawk, Mark Grace, Sean Dunston, all those guys back in the 80s and early 90s, and then seeing the Braves. My brother was more of a Braves fan, and as your older brother, you kind of competitive. You don't get along too well, so whatever he likes, I don't like. So I was a Cubs fan. He was a big Braves fan, and during that time, obviously, the Braves were a lot better than the Cubs at that time. But now, I am a huge Astros fan, being from Houston. And that in itself is a very controversial conversation right now. But I would gladly and proudly say that I'm an Astros fan. I don't care what people say about me. I'm not, I will proudly say I'm a Cubs fan. And the last thing I need is Derek Jeter and those guys coming out as the moral police all of a sudden. It's like, shut up. So right now I'm trying to decide if I'm more bummed out over the COVID thing or the fact that I don't have any baseball, but it's been a tough season. So
yeah, I was going to say it's refreshing to actually talk a little baseball because I haven't talked sports with anybody for 2 months because there are none. Right?
There's no sports going. They're talking about playing all the games like in Phoenix or in Arizona somewhere, all the MLB games until this blows over.
I heard that. Yeah,
I don't know.
That's crazy. But I'm just really appreciating the fact that I had it. Was able to get out a lot this season. I feel really bad for all my guide friends and all the people in the fly fishing biz down here who are just coming into the height of their tarpon season. I mean, this is a big deal right through June. And there are still people fishing, believe it or not, fishing is still an essential activity in Florida, like golf and probably pickleball. But it's up to you individually to decide whether or not, you want to take the chances. And the tarpon are there, but there's obviously been a lot of cancellations. And I haven't seen it yet, but I heard that my buddy Andy Mill did a post, a blog or a podcast or something on Facebook. I don't know, but he basically said, "Hey, this is really the time to support if you're not going to go, support your guides, because there's going to be another season and they're in the middle of this. So don't just screw the guy you've been fishing with for years because the pandemic is going on, because they need to survive through this so you can do this again."
Right.
And it's a really good point, because a lot, and in Michigan too. I know there's no outfitting or guiding going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it applies across the board, and I've certainly tried to support the people I fish with here, but it's going to be tough. They're not all going to make it through this, because a lot of them, this is their, this is when they make it, and that goes for the tourism business overall. But it's really a tough situation.
Well, it's a seasonal thing, right?
Right.
It's a season. Once the season's over, it's over. And it's not like, restaurants have been hit really hard too. But, when people come back, they're open year round,
Right.
With these guys, this is their window of opportunity, and for them to miss 2 or 3 months of guiding, that's a lot. And then, talking to Brian Kosminski up here, and we were talking about a lot of the mom and pop fly shops that make all their money from the wintertime. Because they're up north, they'll close down in the wintertime and they'll go to these big shows, and that's what gets them through the winter. Well, all those shows were canceled this spring,
Right.
And it's just, it's going to be interesting how this all shakes out for fly fishing in general, and I'm a big supporter of my local fly shop. But it's just, I'm just hoping everything turns around quickly, hopefully people stay healthy. I don't want, 250,000 people dying by any means, but I'm ready for things to get back to normal, just like everybody else,
Yeah, amen to that.
So.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. I just think about to go with a group of people, could be a life-threatening situation. You just don't do it intentionally. So who would have ever thought we were considering those things just to go fishing, right, or whatever activity? So it's a whole new dynamic.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. Well, if someone, I obviously, we'll put some links up to the magazines that those are printed in. We can't distribute those because those are in the magazine. So we're not going to distribute
correct.
that.
Yeah.
But we'll put up some links to where people can order those magazines where your articles are in. But if someone wanted to also order a book from you, your Muskie on the Fly, and some of those other books, how would they find out about you? Where would they go to do that, Robert?
Well, they're available on Amazon. I mean, the Muskie on the Fly book is basically been sold out for a while, but there are copies around. Amazon's got them, and some fly shops have them. There's been a lot of talk back and forth with my publisher about a reprint, and that's kind of really on hold right now. But we'll probably do that with a few maybe different introduction or tweak or something, whatever anniversary thing for the 10th year, whatever. But my publisher is Wild River Press on the Muskie book, and my second book was a pike fly fishing destinations book with Stonefly Press, and I assume they have copies, but Amazon had copies too the last time I checked. And that covers pike fishing around the world because pike are circumpolar in their habitat. And then there was another muskie destination book, which they promised to print, but I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But anyway, I did write 3 books, and there's 2 out there somewhere. So
yeah, well, we'll be sure to put some links up where people can find you.
Thank you,
and we really appreciate you taking time with us today, Robert. And hopefully we could say go Cubs soon.
Absolutely, that would be what a thrill that will be, huh?
Or White Sox, depending on where you are.
White Sox, yeah.
but especially the Cubs.
No, I appreciate your having me back. I know this is our second go around, and despite the technical difficulties, it's always a lot of fun. And I know the first time we did it, I got a lot of good feedback. So I know you got a lot of followers out there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because you created this baby, and it's all yours. So that's really neat. I commend you for that. And I'm happy to share the love whenever you want to talk again. So.
All right. Well, that's great, Robert. Well, thank you very much. And you guys stay safe down in Florida, and maybe this fall we'll be able to get out, huh?
Yeah, we were supposed to do that. I regret that, like I said, but we'll make it happen for sure.
All right. Sounds great, Robert. Well, have a great day. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on the Remote No Pressure podcast. And as always, Bill, thank you very much.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. Yeah.
Every episode that you hang out with me, Bill, every episode that you help me with video, I consider it a gift from you. And I really appreciate all that you do on the Remote No Pressure podcast. I do. Thank you very much.
No problem, dude. It's always fun.
Well, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you guys for hanging out with us here on the Remote No Pressure podcast. Please, for the love of Pete, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, be sure to check us out on our other socials. We're not trying to be Insta famous. It's just trying to keep this podcast on the air. And by you subscribing to our YouTube channel, when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can monetize that. Also, check out our website, remotenopressure.com. Check out our decals. Every dollar that you buy is going back into this podcast to keep it on the air. So be sure to check that out. And until next time, Bill, I don't know. I don't know if they can go fishing this week.
Yeah, you can. You can go.
Some states.
Just got to be 6 feet away.
Okay, until next time, go fishing.